to Weekly Reddit. We will be looking at the best stories of December 2020. Am I the asshole for celebrating my anniversary despite what happened at my wedding? My husband and I had our wedding last year. The venue was beautiful and bordered a lake. Unfortunately, during the reception, one of the young children snuck away from their parents and decided to go for a swim, despite not being able to. This was tragic and devastating, and obviously cut the day short. We haven't really spoken to the parents since then, as we weren't close to them aside from seeing them on holidays, which haven't happened this year. We are still Facebook friends though. When our first anniversary came, I made a post celebrating our anniversary with a few wedding photos. I didn't think anything of it, until the comments came flooding in. I woke up to 30 comments and 15 missed calls. The top comment was from the mother of the child, who was outraged about it. She wrote a very long comment about how my post was disrespectful of the tragedy that had happened that day and how dare I post that and not mention her child. And of course talking to her first. 30 comments later, and it was clear that the entire family had clearly started to take sides in a battle I didn't realize I created. As of today, we're at 150 comments. My friends and my parents are involved too. Half of his family is screaming for me to take it down, apologize to the parents, and show more respect, possibly by even celebrating our anniversary on a different day. Some of the family think that we should still be able to celebrate our anniversary on the actual day, but just keep it offline to keep peace. I don't think I did anything wrong with my post, and I feel like we should be allowed to celebrate our anniversary just like anyone else. I'm not celebrating the tragedy, I'm celebrating my wedding. Am I the asshole? Edit. I have changed the post to only be visible to me and deleted all comments to try to stop the arguing, but from the email we just received, those comments were just a symptom of a larger problem. My mother-in-law sent us an email with, from what I can tell, roughly 3/4 of my husband's family CC'd on it. His parents, grandparents, and the parents of the child are not only in the different day camp, but they are also demanding a second wedding. According to them, they've kept their silence for so long due to shock and being distracted by everything else going on this year, but they feel that because of what happened we aren't really married yet in the family. They understand that weddings are expensive, so they, husband's parents, offered to completely pay for this second wedding that will be the real wedding in his family's eyes, and because it may be a year or two before this can be done safely, they will tolerate us living in sin indefinitely due to the circumstances. My husband hates arguing with his family, and I'm not sure how I would even approach this with my family without being laughed out of the room. So now we need to talk about what to do with this. I said I can buy 2 of them. Okay, that was too perfect to not share here. So, I buy the new Cyberpunk 2077 for my PS4, but god, that game have issues. One of them was the fact that the game have some many crashes what make it impossible to play sometimes. So, I finally decided to buy a PS5. Here, one PS5 is $4.699. If you want cheap things, don't come to Brazil. So, I decided to go on a store who sell them and grab one, and yeah, I love my girlfriend, but that thing was love on the first sight. So, I was going pay my new baby when I heard a woman scream "Mas isso tá caro demais" for my friends who not speak Portuguese. This is very expensive. Of course, I go to check what was the issue when I see a mother and her children making a tantrum because the game was too expensive, and I don't take the right of her. Pay more than 4K in a video game is heartbreaking. She started to argue with the manager and the employee, so I just watch that because if someone turn aggressive I can stop then and prevent anyone to get hurt. So, the mother see me and go right in my direction. I just waited, thinking she just wanted to talk about the price, and that is very common here, discuss the price and see with we know a place more cheap and go there. But god, I was wrong. She started to ask me to pay a console for the kid. who was crying and screaming he wanted a game. Me, disculpa mos amas sei carod meis compradoisium delisnum mesmo seria pramim, sorry mom, is too expensive to buy 2 games and one of them is not for me. Ch. Maso mafilho carum video game donatal, voce now vei ser egoista e se preoccupa compri so certo? But my son want a video game for the Christmas, you really gonna be selfish and be worried about the price, right? Me. Disculpa mas dois delis vei ser mais to 8 mil reais, mas eu tenho consolem casa que eu ia vender, sale quase eu posso ir e pega prail. Sorry, but 2 of them will be more than 8.000, but I have a game in home who I was about to sell it. If he wants one, maybe I can go there and grab for him. Now, I know what sound. Man, she is a choosing. Why you will do that? Well, I just don't know, she was 1 at the time. Yet, and I never got a console on my childhood. So if I can give one for a kid and make his day, why not do that? But I was so wrong, man, and the things go downhill so fast. The CH just smiled to me and called his son, who came still crying. Ch. Obam moso veit darum video game, the good man will give you 1 console. Kid, ESK Ilta Segurando? Is the one he is holding? Me, foi mal mas now, eu tenho casa e vu venda, vale mais a pena Daryl. Sorry, but no, I have one at home and I was about to sell it. So I think is more worth it, give it to you. The kid smile and gain a glow in the eye, is the new Xbox. I chuckle a little, now, EO PS4, no, is the PS4. And the kid's shine go away so fast and here we go. Kid, porque o velho? Why the old one? Me, porque eu vou trocar el por esse, because I will switch he for this one. Ch, porque voce now do esse diaque temum? Why you just give that since you already have one? Me, porque eu quero esse? Eu vim comprar esse daqui, because I want this one. I came by this one. The woman and the kids start the most sad and who I want to trick. Was a pathetic and funny fake story about how hard it was for them have good things since she was a single mother and her boyfriend left her with the child and yada yada yada. So, I looked to my cell phone and noticed something. My salary was there. I almost forgot that I was gonna buy with some economies, since per month I have 5.000 saved in the end of the month, so I smirk and look to the woman. Me, olha, me salario que eu então posso comprar dois. Look, I just received my salary. I can buy 2 now. The woman and the child smile to me and then start to tell me how I was a great person and etc. So, I grab a Xbox Series X and pay for then. Going right to the exit when the woman go after me. Ch, então voce compru? So you buy it? Me, sim, ambos estão aqui, yes, they are right here. When she was about to call the child, I get in the car e turn on the engine. Ch, and voce tá indo? Hey, where are you going? Mi casa, jogamos novos video games, home, play my new games. She was confused, asking me why and telling I said I gonna buy 2 and 1 for her son. Me, eu disque podia comprar dois deles, nunca queria comprar pro cefalho. I said I could buy 2 of them, never said I was gonna buy it for your son. And I just go away, listening my song and laughing. Man, I don't know why, but I felt sorry for the little guy. Maybe if he was a little less spoiled, and her mama was not a choosing person, he maybe will be playing Fortnite on the PS4. Now I have a PS4, a PS5 and a Xbox and I don't know where I put the Xbox now. Hey, can you fix my daughter's laptop for free? Multiple times. Too long didn't read at bottom. I feel this a moral pro revenge, but if mods and others don't agree, please feel free to remove it. A bit of backstory, personal beliefs. I'm willing to help my friends. But we all know someone who has or have themselves a friend who is the group mooch. The kind of person who knows you're getting together and just shows up nothing in hand and expects to be given free food, booze the entire time. Yet sadly you put up with them till it gets to the breaking point of wanting to beat them senseless with a shovel. This story is about said friend whom I finally got to the breaking point with. My moocher friend isn't tech savvy, like at all. He has zero respect for tech and constantly uses me as his go-to man when stuff goes sideways, almost always his doing. This is from the olden days of Windows 8 being a fresh hot mess that was the next big thing everyone hated because it took the standard Windows interface, beat it over the head with a bat, tossed the bloody corpse into a wood chipper, then proceeded to light the remaining slurry on fire with military-grade napalm. I hate Windows 8 in case you didn't pick up on that. He had recently bought a laptop for his daughter since she was starting to need it for school and he wanted a mobile PC to use when he felt like it. Pretty sure he just wanted it for himself but needed to convince the wife to okay the expense. Instead of asking me for input, he decided he was just going to go to Big Blue Multi-Story and buy cheapest laptop model that rhymes with hell. It took less than a day of him fighting with it to call me ask if I'd put Windows 7 on it because he hated Windows 8. I asked why not return it and get a Windows 7 model, to which he responded, Big Blue doesn't have any Windows 7, only 8, and my daughter really needs this computer. Sure she does. I agree, and he drops it off within an hour. I should note that this happened just after Windows 8 dropped and there was no classic shell programs out that simply said fuck off new piece of shit tablet design, we're using the old one everyone knows and can use, so my options were limited. Did an initial look at what I was getting myself into and lucky me, hell had only put out drivers for Windows 8 for this model. Yay! I do about 6 hours worth of hunting / downloading / tweaking drivers, and praying, cursing the tech gods as I installed Windows 7. I had to cherry pick working drivers for most of the hardware. The rest I got to work through sheer trial and error. I made a restart disk, backed up and labeled every driver for this system in individual numbered folders in case I needed to redo anything on this piece of shit. My friend is notorious for fucking up his computer's operating system. I give him a ring and let him know it's good to go and he picks it up the next day. Less than 2 weeks later he texts saying something's wrong with it, it won't do blah blah blah, or I can't get it to do what I want. Shocking, I know. I just restore from the disk I made and give it back same day. Let's see how long this lasts. Almost a week later, same thing. Again a quick restore and I give it back. This time it took almost a whole 3 weeks till I got a text. Now I'm pissed, what the hell is he doing to this thing to fuck up the operating system? I finally took the time to look at the system and see WTF was going on. He had a bunch of cracked games downloaded and was trying to run those. A bunch of virus, malware on it, oh, and a bunch of shady porn sites in his browser history. I'm livid. The only reason I kept fixing this damn thing was because it was supposed to be his daughter's. I got a hold of his wife to see exactly who was really using the laptop and for what. Turns out he told her it was having issues and he was constantly trying to fix it at home and even took it to work to mess around with it when he had time. He was a manager at a hut that sells pizza. He's one of those real hands-on managers who let everyone know what needs to be done then fucks off in the office. So I get the evil idea of fixing things my way. My first step to fixing things my way was to make an admin account that only I had the info for and limit the other account to a limited user. When I talked to his wife I got a good idea of what his daughter really like as far as shows, games, etc. I then proceed to pimp this laptop out for a 10-year-old girl. My Little Pony wallpapers, about 100 on rotate, the entire My Little Pony cartoon show stored directly on the computer, Bratz, Barbie, the works. I even redid the icons to a My Little Pony theme and tweaked the user interface to be pink, purple colored. I made sure there was a parental lock on the browsers to prevent anything porn related from even showing up on the laptop. I installed TeamViewer and locked in my personal credentials so I could get on anytime I needed. And just for good measure I installed a handy program called Deep Freeze. For those unfamiliar with it, it snapshots the drive as is and restores the drive to that exact image every time the power cycles. Only downside to this program is you lose anything you save on the computer when the power cycles. Not a problem since I had gotten a bulk pack of thumb drives that were multicolored and came with lanyards. I even went a step above and beyond and got a My Little Pony skin for the laptop lid in case he thought of taking it to work again. I personally delivered the laptop this time when the wife and daughter were home. The girly high-pitched squeals of joy that nearly ruptured my eardrums made it all worth it. She went off on a joy-induced tirade as I show her and her mom everything I did, including all the shows and games I put on just for her. I then gave her a bright pink thumb drive with purple lanyard and explained that when she wanted to play the games or save anything the drive needed to be plugged in. I set the save path for all the games to the thumb drive and added a shortcut to the drive itself on the desktop to make sure she wouldn't lose any schoolwork she was doing. I made sure both her and her mom knew the thumb drive had to plugged in, otherwise things wouldn't be saved. I didn't mention the parental lock I set up or deep freeze. I wanted it to be a surprise for my friend later. Both her and her mum thanked me. I got a big hug from the daughter who was still flying around on cloud 9. She was begging her mom to watch My Little Pony with her before I even left. I knew it was only a matter of time till I got an angry call from my friend as soon as he got a chance to use the laptop. I was waiting with gleeful anticipation. I had dropped the laptop off on Monday and I knew he wouldn't get a chance to use it till Friday when he got back from a trip he took. Cut to Friday night and I get a call around 8 p.m., which I ignore and let go to voicemail. I get 3 more calls every 5-10 minutes which I also ignore. Then I get a bunch of texts which I ignored till about 11 p.m. when I figured he had ample time to try and fuck with the laptop to only be shut down at every attempt. I call him up with an especially snarky attitude, acting half asleep just to piss him off. Mooch, finally, where the fuck have you been? I tried calling you and texting but you never responded. Me, yeah, I had a long day so I took an evening nap. What's up? Mooch, what's up? This piece of shit laptop is busted, that's what's up. I can't get anything to work right. I downloaded a game and tried installing it but it says I don't have admin rights. I restarted it and the game files were gone completely, so I re-downloaded it but still couldn't install it. It's not even letting me browse the web. I thought you fixed this. What the hell? Me, calm down, I'm sure it's something simple. Let me remote in. Mooch, wait, you can do that? Me, yeah, I got sick of having to have it dropped off so I installed remote software. Let's see. First thing I do is remotely restart the system. Mooch, IT did it again. Me, what? Mooch, the game I downloaded is gone from the desktop. Me, oh yeah, I put software on a laptop that restores it to a default setting. Anything not saved on an external drive gets removed. I gave your wife and daughter a thumb drive. Didn't they tell you it was needed? Mooch, no. What the hell? Why'd you do a stupid thing like that? Me, well, I've had to fix this thing 3 times already and I got sick of it, so I made sure anything you downloaded or tried to install would be deleted and blocked. You don't have admin rights, I do. Last time there was over a dozen viruses, malware from your games, and the games you were trying to run would barely run on this laptop even if you had legit versions. Mooch, what the fuck? Insert 15-minute rant I didn't pay any attention to because I don't care. Well, why won't it let me browse the web? Me, are you sure? Let's see. I bring up Google and start browsing standard sites, hit a few cartoon sites I favorited for his daughter. Everything looks fine to me. Could you be referring to the porn sites that were in the browser history on your daughter's laptop? Mooch, Me, yeah, I thought so. See, me being the upstanding guy I am, I turned on parental controls to keep web browsing safe for your 10-year-old daughter. The fuck is wrong with you? Mooch, but. Me, no buts. It took a lot of work to get this thing working for your daughter's sake, and then you use it as your personal play toy, which I had to fix 3 times. I'm done with your bullshit. I made it so your daughter can use her laptop when and how she needs. If you want to get your own laptop and fuck it up beyond repair, that's fine by me. No more freebies if you fuck something up being an idiot. If you think this is unfair, I'd be more than happy to let your wife know exactly what the issue with the laptop was, including screenshots of your browsing history. I don't mind helping, but you go above and beyond being a mooch a lot of times. Anything else you need help with? Mooch, no. Me. Have a great weekend. Click. Having spent over 18 years in customer service, tech support, so I went a bit nuclear on him, but I had enough of his shit. Reminded me of all too many times the problem isn't the hardware, software, it's the meat puppet smashing their face against the keyboard and wondering why stuff doesn't work. So I simply removed that part of the equation. Amazingly enough, he didn't have any more issues with that laptop. Wonder why? Only time I was gotten a hold of was by his wife asking me to update some things and install some software the daughter needed for school. Which I was more than happy to do. Too long didn't read. Friend uses me as personal tech monkey for his daughter's laptop he keeps breaking doing shady stuff on. So I pimp it out in girly shows / games / themes and completely lock it down so he can't change anything without me doing it. He bitches me out and I proceed to drop a bomb on him. Newly hired youth minister got me kicked out of church for no reason. I found out he had been screwing a deacon's wife and I helped the deacon ruin his life. I posted this on r/pro revenge and lots of people liked it, over 15k upvotes. So I thought I'd share it with you. Enjoy. DLDR. Church youth minister spread false rumors about me and got me kicked out of the church I had attended my whole life. For no reason other than pure meanness. I found a guy who hated him even more than I did, and I gave the guy information that he used to do a very artful and thorough job of completely ruining the youth minister's life. Youth minister got fired and blacklisted. Couldn't find another job. By chance I saw him several years later, working a shitty job. Sweet. About 6-7 years ago, I was a ministerial student at a conservative Christian college. I had attended the same Bible-believing church since I was a small child. It was large, about 1,000 members, but not a mega church. This church had been an enormous part of my life for as long as I could remember. I played piano for youth choir, preached at the children's church service, which was held in the church's chapel at the same time as the adult service, drove the church bus to pick up unchurched children, etc. and ad infinitum. I did all of this for free, not even getting reimbursed for expenses. During my senior year in college, we got a new minister of music, education and youth. This guy was as charming as an ice cream sundae with razor blades in it. I'll call him Mr. Charming. All of the deacons, and their wives, thought he walked on water. He was an authoritarian asshole. In his first meeting with the church youth group, he announced that he had been hired to straighten out the youth group. One of his favorite sayings was, "When I tell my disciples jump, the only questions they get to ask are how high and how far." The adults loved him and the youth hated him. Within a few weeks, half of the high school and college students, that is, all of those without parents in the church, had quit coming to church. Most youth directors would have gotten into trouble over this, but he had the audacity to proclaim, in front of the entire congregation in the Sunday morning worship service, that he had eliminated all of the thorny ground from the youth group, a reference to the parable of the sower in the Bible, and the pastor and all of the deacons loved him for it. He didn't waste any time going after what he really wanted, the pastor's job. The pastor, whom I'll call Pastor, was about 60 years old. Within a few weeks of Mr. Charming's arrival, rumors started circulating about Pastor's health. He was an avid runner and cyclist, and that he just didn't seem to be as mentally sharp as he used to be. He frequently quoted long Bible passages from the pulpit, entirely from memory without misstating a single word, sometimes in Greek or Hebrew. Worst of all, however, was the accusation that Pastor was really too liberal for the church. In my denomination, it is the kiss of death to even be suspected of being a liberal. None of these accusations made any sense, but people kept talking about them. I have no idea why Pastor didn't find out. Or maybe he did find out and was just too scared to do anything about it. In some denominations, like Catholic or Methodist, the denomination assigns pastors, priests. Not my church's denomination. Each church calls them minister. This guarantees that every pastor always walks a razor's edge. The slightest slip and you're out. You don't even have to slip. Maybe you even do the right thing and it still offends enough people. It doesn't take many, just a handful if they hate you enough. Then you're out. Or maybe, like Pastor, some creep just lies about you and gets your job. And, since the church often owns your house, the parsonage or manse, your entire family is suddenly homeless and destitute. Then I became a target. I still don't know why. A couple of months after starting to work for my church, Mr. Charming called me and informed me that my services were no longer needed at youth choir, children's church, bus ministry, anywhere. In fact, he said, he did not even want me to participate in any of these functions at all. Not even go to the Sunday morning worship service. I later found out that members of his family had been hired by the church, at very nice rates of pay, to perform these functions that I'd been doing for free. His wife got paid more for playing a beat-up piano at the 1-hour youth choir rehearsal than the main organist. Pianist got paid for playing for adult choir rehearsal plus Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings, when the youth choir sang. The wife could barely pick out the notes on a piano. This lady radiated bitterness, resentment and repressed anger. But she rarely said anything. She just sat there and glared, which was somehow even creepier than when she spoke. I was very hurt, emotionally, so I dropped by Pastor's office, and tearfully asked him what I'd done wrong. I couldn't get a straight answer, except he told me that people are saying things about me and that if I wanted to get a good recommendation from him to our denomination's minister's school, I'd better shut up and do what you're told. So, I started asking all of my church friends what people were saying about me. Everyone said, well, I didn't want to tell you, and I don't believe it, but here's what I heard. According to the rumor mill, I had gotten my girlfriend pregnant and forced her to have an abortion. I hadn't even had a girlfriend since junior high, and I'd been arrested for possession of marijuana and my dad had to pay a bunch of money to hush it up. I didn't even know what pot looked like. There were other rumors, but you get the idea. I did what Pastor told me to. I never darkened the door of that church again. Except once. Months later, see below. It hurt like hell. I'd devoted my life to that church since I was a little kid. But I had to have Pastor's recommendation to get into the minister's school I wanted to go to, and the pain was unbearable just driving by there. So I decided to keep my distance. But I started thinking about Mr. Charming. Anyone who was that evil had to have a past, and it probably wasn't a good one. I knew that, just before working for my church, he had worked at a large church, in the same denomination, in a small town about 50 miles away. That church was actually about twice the size of my church. So he had moved from a big church to the same job at a smaller church. A bad career move? Running away from something? Ah, there was something rotten in Denmark. And it smelled like an opportunity for me. As luck would have it, one of my uncles, and his family, lived in that same small town, although none of my family attended Mr. Charming's former church. So I called one of my cousins, told her my story, and enlisted her as a co-conspirator. I'll call her Anne. The next Sunday morning, Anne and I attended Sunday school and morning worship at Mr. Charming's old church. Although Anne had never been a member of that church, it was a small town where everyone knew everyone, so she knew most of the people there. She started asking about Mr. Charming, and got an earful. Every one of her friends said that Mr. Charming was a world-class creep. He would flirt with, and even make suggestive comments to, all of the girls in the youth group, even those in junior high. He was 40+ years old and had a wife and 3 children of his own. And then there was the touching. Never anything obvious or illegal. But he loved to put his hands all over the young ladies, whenever their parents weren't around. But, just like at my former church, the adults loved him because he kept the youth in line. Our investigation went on for several weeks. I kept a low profile so as not to arouse suspicion. Mostly, I just stood around, ate donuts, drank coffee, and talked about football. And did most of the work because she knew so many people, and it was perfectly natural for her to attend this church in her hometown, even if it was not the church she usually attended. After church was over, we would go to her house, have a delicious Sunday lunch cooked by my aunt, and then write down everything we had learned. By then, Anne's whole family were in on my investigation. They were as angry as I was about the way I'd been treated, and our weekly report made interesting lunchtime conversation. Within a few weeks, I was sure that all I had to do was drive a few of these young ladies, and their parents, friends of my aunt and uncle, down to my old church. Let them tell their stories to the parents of a few girls in the youth group, and Mr. Charming would become Mr. Unemployed. But it kept getting better and better, so Anne and I kept digging. And I really wanted to keep a low profile if I could, because I didn't want to piss off Pastor any more than I had to. He knew a lot of people in the denomination, and he could easily ruin my ministerial career before it even started. Finally, after a month or so, Anne grabbed me by the sleeve and said, "You've got to hear this." She introduced me to a well-dressed, very large guy, maybe 30-35 years old. I'll call him Fred. We slipped off into a Sunday school room where we would not be overheard. It turned out that Mr. Charming had had a multi-year affair with Fred's wife. Fred had kept his cool when he found out, talked with a lawyer, and had spent months gathering evidence. Text messages, voicemails, emails, even photos and videos with Fred's wife and Mr. Charming in them. Apparently, Mr. Charming got stimulated by watching videos of himself doing the wild thing with Fred's wife. Then Mr. Charming would send the videos to Fred's wife and they both would have cybersex while texting each other. Later, they would hook up the old-fashioned way and make more videos. Finally, Fred confronted his wife. She denied everything, but the evidence was just too much. Fred told her he wanted a divorce, full custody of the children, their house, his retirement money, his business, her engagement and wedding rings, everything, even the dog. She hired a lawyer, but laws and courts being what they are in this rural Bible Belt county, her lawyer told her that if the judge saw the videos, she'd be lucky if she ended up in a homeless shelter with all of her worldly possessions under her bunkin and garbage sack. Then Fred turned his attention to Mr. Charming. Fred still sincerely loved his wife, and he was convinced that Mr. Charming had deliberately ruined his marriage. Taking Mr. Charming to court, suing him for loss of consortium and otherwise making him legally miserable would take too long. This is the rural Deep South. Many people around here prefer a more direct approach. In rural counties, The police and any jury of your peers will probably include people who have known you since kindergarten. So, if you have good reasons for your actions and you aren't too stupid about it, there are things that you can do. Fred scheduled an appointment with Mr. Charming in his church office, who did not suspect a thing because Fred was a deacon and his children were in the church youth group. Remember that I said Fred was big. 6 foot 6 inches at least, 300 pounds, and if there was an inch of fat on him, he hid it well. Looked like he could pull up a 100-foot oak tree by the roots without breaking a sweat. Fred told me that he brought several friends with him, and, of course, the videos. One friend blocked the door. Another unplugged the phone. A third one stood behind Mr. Charming and encouraged him to stay seated in his chair. Fred made Mr. Charming watch about 10 minutes of one of the videos. Then calmly said, "I'm going to stand here and watch you pack up your stuff, then you're going to walk out of this building and never show your ass in this town again. Or we'll be back." Mr. Charming did as he was told. A month later, he had a new job at another church, my old church, and started ruining another whole set of lives, including mine. Fred actually did not know where Mr. Charming had gone. He had been led to believe that Mr. Charming had moved out of state. He was surprised, gratified and angered, to learn that this scumbag was only 50 miles away. This had all happened just a few months before. Fred was still deeply in love with his wife. They were getting counseling and he hoped that they could save his marriage. But his hatred of Mr. Charming was still fulminating, and had been reignited by my telling him that Mr. Charming was living and working less than an hour away from his wife. Like Mount St. Helens a few minutes before the explosion, he presented such a face of restrained rage and vindictiveness that it scared me, and I wasn't even the one he was mad at. The next day, Monday, I drove back up there and gave him a copy of the directory of my old church. It had home addresses, phone numbers and email addresses for pretty much every member of the church. I showed him the pages that listed all of the deacons and other church leaders. And I marked some of the church's major financial donors. I explained my situation with Pastor and asked that my name not be mentioned. "No problem," he said. The next Sunday, I could not resist visiting my old church to see how things were going. Mr. Charming was nowhere to be seen, nor was any explanation given about what had happened to him. One weird thing, though, Pastor looked scared shitless. His voice, usually resonant, loud and almost musically baritone, trembled during the whole sermon. I slipped in just before the service started and made a point of sitting in the very front row, center pew. The look on his face when he saw me was worth all of my trouble. I didn't know it at the time, but Fred had gotten right to work and done a very thorough job. The whole church had gotten multiple anonymous emails with photos and videos of Mr. Charming and Fred's wife in various, well, compromising positions and states of undress. Deacons and major donors got emails plus express mail packages just for good measure. Mr. Charming and Pastor had been left out. They didn't know anything until the phone calls started pouring in. After the worship service, it did not take long for my church friends to figure out why I was there. It was very gratifying. I was something of a hero, although I kept swearing that I had no idea what they were talking about. Things continued to blow up in my former church for months afterwards. Both Pastor and the pastor of Mr. Charming's old church almost lost their jobs, because they had lied to my old church's committee of deacons, who had recommended hiring Mr. Charming, about why Mr. Charming had left his old job. But somehow they managed to stay in the pulpits at their churches, although a lot of church members left my former church, which caused some financial problems. There was talk of legal action for sending unsolicited porn to little old ladies and other people in the church. But nobody ever was able to prove that Fred did it. I don't think they tried very hard. After all, his wife was in the videos and photos. Both churches really did not want this to become a court case, because of Mr. Charming's trysts, and the fact that he had spent years screwing a deacon's wife while he had unlimited, unsupervised access to dozens of church youth, would then become a matter of public record. So they hushed it up. I never saw Pastor again. I had lost all of the love, trust and respect that I had had for him, and I was sure that he had figured out that I was somehow connected to the whole fiasco. So my chances of having a preaching career in my denomination were precisely zero. By that time, being a pastor, like Pastor, was the last thing I wanted anyway. I withdrew my application to minister's school, and eventually completed a doctorate in archaeology at a different grad school. Graduated with honors, at a large, widely respected state university. I've been teaching at a large, public university in the Midwest of the USA, with summer gigs on archaeological digs in Europe, except this summer, because of the pandemic. And I am very happy. I had no idea what happened to Mr. Charming after he left my former church. But it didn't matter because I'd moved on to a new, happier, more meaningful, more enlightened life. One last, very gratifying, event, the reason for this post. All that happened 6-7 years ago. Fast forward to last March. I went to pick up a friend at a large downtown urban bus station in the US. Everyone hates this place. Not only is it crowded, it is poorly maintained and filthy. It smells like spoiled garbage mixed with diesel exhaust and seldom cleaned public restrooms. My friend's bus was late. I stopped by the news stand to get myself a soda and candy bar. Who do you think was restocking the shelves? Mr. Charming. I just sat across from the news stand and enjoyed my drink and snack. He recognized me, then turned away. I just sat and watched him, restocking shelves full of porno mags and junk food. Revenge is a feast that is best enjoyed cold. Am I the asshole for getting upset at my girlfriend not letting me into their business that was my idea? So the other day my girlfriend was talking about how she wanted to start a small business with her friends but she didn't know what to do. I spent all night forming things that she likes and that she can make a business out of, and I told her she should try making charcuterie boards. She said that would be cute and I gave her all my notes which included a name, expenditures, aesthetics, etc., and she said she'd look at it eventually. I was pretty proud of it, and I thought it had gone nowhere. Until today I was recommended an Instagram page that had the handle of the exact name and logo I came up with. I confronted her and she told me that every time she had gone to her friend's house for the last month, they were working on this business and made a few sales even. She didn't tell me this at all. She didn't tell me she wanted to use my idea, or that she was even starting a business at all. I felt very betrayed but pushed those feelings aside and told her I'd like to be a part of it too because it was my idea. She told me no because her friends want it to be just them. I told her that would be understandable if she told me she was using my idea or starting a business, but she didn't. I would have liked to talk about my role in her business had she told me she was going to use my idea word for word. I feel betrayed, I feel hurt, but most of all I feel like she doesn't respect what I did for her. I wrote down notes for hours to help her do something she's passionate about and she didn't even have the decency to tell me she used it, let alone that I can't be a part of it. She told me that I'm not entitled to anything she's a part of and that it's a privilege. Her friend messaged me saying that I can't force myself into the business just because I'm her boyfriend. Am I the asshole? I feel like I'm losing my mind. The smack heard round the world. I'd like to preface this by saying that I, 25F, was, back in the day, what was considered to be a gifted child. I apparently did well enough on some standardized IQ test that my school's administration saw fit to stick me and some of the other gifties in a series of specialized advanced classes. These were meant to test the limits of our creativity and forge geniuses out of us so that our apparent potential wasn't wasted to the world. Or something. I say this not to humble brag about my elementary age achievements. I, like many gifties, am now a horribly depressed adult with a complex or 7, but instead to serve as a preface to the sort of devious, conniving child I was. With the brain power to fuel my fucketry and bamboozle my enemies, I was a virtually unstoppable force of chaos. A fountain of shenanigans. More simply put, I was a little shit. But I was a smart little shit. When I was around 8 or 9, I did something to piss off my dad. I don't recall what, but it was bad enough to warrant a dose of old-fashioned corporal punishment, which wasn't as frowned upon in the mid-2000s as it often is today. Don't hit your kids, folks. That being said, my father had a system. He would send me to my room for about 10 minutes pre-punishment, something that gave me time to consider and reflect upon my crimes, and him time to calm down, as he did not believe in inflicting punishment while angry. Spankings were doled out thereafter, responsibility for actions was taken, talks were had and business was gone about as usual. Most of the time. But remember, I was both clever and devious at that age. It's a dangerous combination. On this particular day, I did not especially feel like owning up to my atrocities, and the brain gears were turning to the tune of spite. If he was going to spank me, I intended to make good of the age-old corporal punishment promise: this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. The revenge. I had 10 minutes post-banishment to devise a plan. First, to soften the impact of what was to come, I donned several additional pairs of underwear beneath my jeans. Not enough to look bulky or be suspicious, but enough to cushion the inevitable blows. Second, I looked around for something hard. Something solid and sturdy, but small enough to fit down the back of my pants without its presence being obvious. I settled on a small hardback book, just the right size to fit where I needed it without giving me the telltale ass of SpongeBob SquarePants. In the bathroom attached to my room, I checked myself at all angles to be certain that my ruse was not discoverable at first glance and was quite pleased with the results. Then I waited. Good old Dad came into the room, sat down on the bed. He gave me the look, and I assumed the position after fronting a few protests to mask my anticipation. Smack. The sound of a grown man's hand striking a hardback book cover isn't usually satisfying, but it's the most beautiful sound in existence when the alternative is the sound of that same hand colliding with your ass. I don't think it would have actually hurt him if he had been expecting it, but he didn't, and it did. I, on the other hand, felt nothing. Words were said, colorful ones, as dear old Dad aggressively shook out his stinging palm and regarded me as though I'd just personally ruined his day. I hoped I had. I was a spiteful child, and proud enough of my bastardism that I graced him with the most blatant grin of the shit-eating variety that someone at the age of 9-ish could muster. Did the following punishment increase as a result of my childhood assholery? You bet your sweet, book-shielded asses it did. Was it worth the moment of pride, sass and chaotic glee that my childish self derived from knowing I'd struck back? Abso-fucking-lutely. Edit: this post is literally just a funny story from my childhood and isn't intended to spark or entertain debate on the effectiveness or morality of corporal punishment. If you can't read a story without going full keyboard warrior, just move on. Don't start shit in the comments. Edit 2. Thank you for silver and all the fun little awards. And shout out to my fellow gifties. United in suffering, we are. Grandma goes crazy over a shopping bag. So one time this older lady came to my register, and everything was fine. I scanned everything for her order and gave her the total. One of her purchases was a dress of a famous Disney character, Mona. Then at the moment I bent down to grab a bag from the drawer, she blew up on me. Why? She screamed and taught that I'm going to grab her dress, throw it on the floor, and step on it to ruin it on purpose. I told her that no, I'm just grabbing a bag to put her purchase in. She didn't want that cause the dress will get wrinkled. Suggestion 1, so I suggested a t-shirt box. We could fold it nicely and give it to her in the box. She said no cause it wouldn't fit in her luggage. Suggestion 2, I asked if she wants it wrapped in plastic, nice and firm, and she can take it like that. She got mad at me, cause I taught that you guys are eco-friendly people, love animals, and refused this one as well. Suggestion 3, I suggested another thing that we usually use to protect fragile stuff. It has two portions, one it's white paper, and the other it's like carton but it's cut in a fishnet-like pattern. So I gave an idea to wrap this like a treasure, gift from the ocean, somewhat. She denied this one as well since for her it look ugly. Suggestion 4, I asked when do they need the dress for. It was a week, more or less, before Halloween. She said she needed by the day after tomorrow, so shipping it wasn't an option either. Suggestion 5, I suggested to let me check if we have one brand new from the box in its original packaging in the back, same size and all, but this triggered her off. Why? She said that I somehow knew that her granddaughter had asthma, and by giving her an item that could have dust on it, it's because I wanted to maliciously hurt, kill her. She went on a full tirade on me. Luckily my manager and supervisor were witness to the whole ordeal. My supervisor intervened first and tried to calm the woman down. The woman went off on how disrespectful, insulative, rude, I was, called me all kinds of names, and still me supervisor was trying to help but no avail while the lady was getting more and more aggressive. Not even her husband, who was next to her the whole time, tried to calm her and said let's go please. He did nothing wrong. He had the look of why, please stop. Then my manager stepped in, and she is the boss, with no mercy. She just grabbed a bag from another register, took the dress, shoved it into bag, folded the top of the bag, stapled it shut, along with the receipt, and with a smile that says, "I'll kill you," and said, "Have a good day," smile. The lady got mad and was about to blow up on my manager, but my manager shut her down by saying, "Leave now or security will be called," smile. After that, the lady just grabbed her stuff and ran, following behind the tired, defeated husband. After she left, I was told to get a break to calm down, recover from this incident. But yeah, I survived this ordeal, all over a shopping bag. My GF cheated. I never let her forget. This is a long one. There is 8 long did not read at the bottom. This isn't just a story of revenge. This is a story of how revenge hurts both parties. To this day, a good revenge story gives me a warm bubbly feeling inside. I believe it comes from this college experience years ago when I got revenge on my cheating girlfriend and it felt good. I know I'm not supposed to enjoy it, but I can't deny how satisfying it feels. It's probably one of my favorite feelings in the world, even though I'm ashamed to admit it. So I decided to write my first post about this because I don't tell the story often. It is so extensive and honestly just makes me look bad. I'm going to try my best to not paint a picture where my ex looks as bad as possible and me as innocent as possible. I want to write this accurately as I can, even if it makes me look bad. Bit of context and backstory. At the time of this story, I played Division I NCAA basketball at a school, so I traveled a lot, weekly in different cities and states, and my entire life revolved around this. During the events of this story, I was in the early stages of a horrible drug and alcohol habit. Years after this story, I ended up getting sober and joined a program whose name you can find at the front of almost any phone book. I am sure many people reading this are also sober and will understand how we addicts, alcoholics can be. This story is an effort to explain a character defect that manifested from the events in this story that lead me down a very dark path. However, I don't mean this story to come off in a self-pity kind of way. Lastly, I was always a good kid. I was never troubled. My upbringing was very difficult, but I was able to keep an overall kindness in my spirit to other people and almost always did the right thing or took the high road. When it came to dating, I knew people cheated in relationships, but at the time of this story I always chalked it up to other people not doing things the way I did. I never really thought it would happen to me. I always thought that because I was a 5-star boyfriend and my amazing choice in women, infidelity would never be a part of my dating journey. I was naive. I really thought highly of myself and also had a real arrogance like any guy in his early 20s, I guess. The build-up. I was in my junior year in university. I had been single for about a year after me and my high school GF finally broke up after 3 years. I checked that relationship off as my learning experience and I now knew what to look for in my next girlfriend. The next woman I chose to have a relationship with I would most likely marry and start my future with. I know I was young and dumb and thought I knew everything, lol. I had my eye on this girl at my school. We will call her Lisa. I saw Lisa around the collegiate athletic facility, the university team's training grounds, and locker rooms. Lisa ran for the track team and was damn good. The various athletic teams often had parties and I knew that the first one I saw her at I would introduce myself and try to chat her up a bit and see where it led. Soon enough I see Lisa at one of these parties and we pass each other on the stairs. We make eye contact and she smiled at me. I sparked a conversation with her and after going back and forth a bit we exchanged numbers. We begin the classic American style of flirting where we constantly just hint things back and forth indirectly. We slowly progressed the relationship in this manner for weeks. Sending texts back and forth hinting that we were interested in each other but also playing it cool to not let the other person know we had a crush on them. At the time, she was on a break with her current boyfriend who was a popular player on the football team. She ended up leaving him completely to date me. This should have been a red flag obviously, but remember, I had severe hubris. At the time her leaving him to date me just gave me a superiority complex. I was playing good in sport and if she was willing to leave this guy for me then she will never leave me for another guy. Well, now I was a fucking idiot. I can't express how much I was into Lisa. I was addictively attracted to her and had that weird feeling of I can't believe my crush is actually into me too. I really was so drowned and blinded by my crush on her I missed so many red flags, but our relationship began progressing really fast. Because of this I didn't really do a proper inventory on why I liked her so much. Fast forward like 8 months later. We are together officially. Lisa has her own athlete's dorm room, but I was a couple of years older than her and was working during the summers full-time and part-time during school season and had my own apartment near campus and Lisa was basically living with me. She even would stay there when I was out of town, which was like 3 or 4 days of every week because we were in season and the team was flying all over the country. Me and Lisa were deeply in love regardless. At the end of the season I had planned 2 massive back-to-back parties. One was for my teammate's birthday, Friday night, and then my birthday, Saturday night. They just happened to be one day after the other and luckily landed on a Friday and Saturday night. Me and Lisa got drunk Friday night and had some unprotected sex. Lisa kept a period tracking calendar app on her phone. She was asleep and I drunkenly remembered she always marked down in her calendar when we had unprotected sex, so she knew if she should be worried if she missed her period. She missed her period often because she was an athlete. My inebriated brain thought she should put it in her calendar now because we would forget the next day since we were so fucked up. So I woke her up and said, "Can you put in that calendar that we had unprotected sex?" At this point it was like 5 AM and we were that 5 AM kinda drunk where you're mostly just tired. She unlocked her phone and opened the app and before she could even do it she fell back asleep. So I took the phone while it was still unlocked and proceeded to try and figure out how to put it in her calendar myself. Side note, through our entire relationship, Lisa went through my computer and phone constantly. She was very insecure and always had her suspicions. I didn't care that she was doing this all the time. She never found anything because I never did shady shit, ever. Again, looking back at this, it's an obvious red flag I missed. Remember, I thought this girl would never cheat on me. So this wasn't one of those stories where I went through her phone looking for something and subsequently finding it. In this case, I was innocently trying to navigate this damn period calendar while I was drunk, and I was not suspicious at all. When I looked at the period calendar app on Lisa's phone, I saw all kinds of little markers on different days of each month. Each marker was a different color, so I opened one to see what the color coding meant. I saw that red was obviously symboling her period, and then there was also black markers that showed when she had unprotected sex. This is when my heart sank into my stomach. This fucking calendar was peppered with black markers. It looked like a checkerboard with only a handful of red pieces left and all the fucking black ones. There was black markers on dates that I was in a different city playing basketball. I proceeded to open all of black markers going back for our entire relationship. We did not have unprotected sex very often. Maybe once or twice a month. She had written the names of the guys she had unprotected sex with in the notes section of the black markers. There was a total of 4 guys throughout the entirety of our relationship that she allowed to penetrate her raw. Some months there was almost dozens of those fucking black markers. Sometimes there was 2 in one day. Looking back on this, I wonder if there were more unlisted men that I didn't see, because she clearly only kept track of the guys and times she had unprotected sex. In almost every story I hear of infidelity, it involves the discovery of text messages, being informed by a friend, or the classic coming home early and catching your partner red-handed. I, on the other hand, discovered a fucking well-documented ledger of almost every time she cheated and had unprotected sex. Amongst the 4 guys I discovered, one of them was her ex that she originally left to date me. Cheating on me with him was a common occurrence. There was some other unknown guy she was also clearly sleeping with him regularly. The last 2 fellas looked to be just a one-time thing, but again, like I said, these markers were just the times she had sex without a condom. So who knows what the true story was there. I sobered up real quick. I proceeded to look through Lisa's texts and calls and found nothing. However, at the time, Android phones had a folder where you can see deleted texts but not the contents of the messages. She had thousands of deleted texts and calls, but I couldn't see what they said, but I saw the numbers and did a quick Facebook search and matched one with her ex in addition to something like half a dozen other random dudes. The worst part was I found 2 of my teammates. One guy I was actually pretty close with. I just put the phone down after a few minutes. The evidence was overwhelming. The more it seemed to look at the phone, the more my insides began to hurt. I felt so defeated. I can't fully describe the feeling, but I'm sure anyone reading this that caught a significant other cheating knows what I'm talking about. I felt so stupid for trusting her and having no suspicions of her. I couldn't stop thinking about how I regretted all the times that I had an opportunity to cheat and remained faithful to Lisa. I felt like an idiot for not cheating her when I could have. My loyalty felt like a waste. I know it sounds ridiculous and irrelevant to the fact that she was unfaithful. I think I obsessed over that because if I had cheated as well, I wouldn't have hurt so much in that moment. All I could think about was about how much I was hurt. I would do anything to not feel the pain and embarrassment anymore. Question: am I the only one who thought this way after catching their partner cheating? I'm curious about this. I proceeded to leave my apartment and go for a long walk. I had never felt the emotions that were coming up and didn't know how to process them. My ego felt like it was literally dismantled in front of me. I wasn't sure what to do and I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. My sadness quickly turned to anger. I knew I was gonna get my revenge, I just didn't know how yet. I was seething with rage and wanted to make sure she never recovered from this. My roommate, teammate and best friend at the who was sleeping on the couch in my living room. We will call him Bono. An Eastern European kid who stood 7 foot tall and was as Russian in demeanor as it you can imagine. He also had an equally ridiculous RL name, hence, Bono. Well, Bono called me shortly after I started my walk. I answered and he asked where I was. I asked him to keep this between us, and told him what happened. He stays on the phone and goes into my room and I hear him in his Russian accent yell at her, "Yo bitch, you cheated on op." Then I faintly hear her inaudibly say something in the background and him yelling at her to get out of the apartment. After hearing some scuffling, Bono gets back on the line and says, "Yo, she gone, come back and let's talk." I head back home and me and Bono go over what had happened. Things don't get sappy because we are both complete alpha males who both come from cultures where men don't cry, and neither of us really knew what to say or do in this situation. He makes his best attempt to comfort me and says, "Tonight is your birthday, we gonna get fucked up and find you some sluts." Fuck her. I never liked her anyway. Oh yeah, this day was my birthday. Forgot about that part. Me and Bono go out for breakfast. I am still a little drunk. My phone is blowing up with calls and texts from Elisa. I tell her I saw everything on her phone and I can't stand to speak with her or look at her. She keeps trying to convince me to let her come to my birthday party and I make it clear I don't want her there. She clearly was concerned about exactly what Bono suggested to me earlier when me and him chatted. Lisa's entire reputation and popularity revolved around the fact that she was dating me. I think most people didn't like her in the first place but put up with her because we were together. She knew that if I acted single at my birthday party and she didn't show up, everyone would know something was askew. I think Lisa was more worried about being embarrassed than our relationship. I don't remember much of what happened that night. But one of my friends sent me a little package for my birthday from California filled with some really good weed, hash, moon rocks, some pills and the devil's dandruff, and I proceeded to do a glorious swan dive into an intoxicated oblivion. All I remember is sitting on my chair at the pregame for my party. There was 2 girls sitting on the arms of the chair and I still have a photo of that moment and I remember it vividly. We were preparing to head out. I had a few tables downtown at a popular nightclub. The booze and drugs were the only thing that made me feel normal. I had my sunglasses on and clearly had that happy loaded grin on my face. The longer you look at the photo of me on that chair, you can tell I'm hiding a huge amount of hurt. Sitting on that chair, the cocktail of drugs start to take effect. This was the first time I ever used substances not to party but to feel better. To make me feel normal. I remember thinking, I want to feel this way for the rest of my life. I am never going to hurt like that ever again. With drugs, I have control and no one can hurt me again. Oh, how ironic that turns out to be years down the line. I told my teammates and friends that me and Lisa were done when they asked why she wasn't at the party. I didn't tell them why though. I also didn't show them that I was affected by it in any way and just played it cool. I tried to focus everyone on the party ahead of us. The revenge. So this is one of those revenge stories where it was only half a planned. I knew I wanted to get revenge on Lisa for hurting me so much. But I kind of just improvised as opportunities came up. My original kind spirit had died at my birthday on that chair. All my morals went out the window. I never cheated in relationships, therefore I believed I would never get cheated on. I realize now how dumb that is, but that's what I thought at the time. I didn't care what collateral damage I caused as long as my mission to hurt Lisa as much as possible was accomplished. So continued every day of my life with this new selfish mindset. I was sitting at my computer later that next week skimming Facebook when I saw the profile of one of her track teammates on my feed. That's when I had my first vengeful idea. I decided I was going to attempt to get her teammates to bite the bait that I was about to cast out into the water. Though I didn't have proof she hooked up with my teammates, she was clearly trying to hide conversations between them. So I was going to see how many people who are close to her I could passionately hug. Luckily I had more options than she had when cheating on me. A women's track team is much larger than a men's basketball team. Also much better looking smile. Lisa's teammate I originally spotted on my Facebook had a boyfriend, but I thought, clearly everyone cheats, let's see if it's true. I proceed to do the little flirty social media dance with her. You know, the one where I like a couple of her photos. She likes a couple of mine back. I shoot her a message and bam. She's at my house in my bed about a week later. I proceed to do something similar to other teammates of hers. All on her 4x4 relay team coincidentally. 2 of the 3 girls I passionately hugged had boyfriends and subsequently cheated on them with me, which gave me some real mixed emotions. It stroked my broken ego and also made me bitter and sad. Giving me one of those women ain't shit. None of them are loyal attitudes. This is such a typical story of while fighting monsters I became a monster. This actually became my go-to strategy because it accomplished 2 things in my fucked up mind. It exposed a cheater, but more importantly, if they were willing to cheat on their boyfriends they would A. be more secretive about it, which meant the drama that would ensue when it came out would be elevated, and B. it made me feel better about Lisa cheating because it proved it wasn't me that was the problem. It was women that were the problem. I know it's fucked up, but that's what I thought back then. I started to collect something from every girl that I hooked up with, like a bra, a pair of panties, or some jewelry, etc. Not for some creepy reason, but this is important later and was a part of my plan. Sometimes I didn't even have to try. One girl left a pair of very distinguishable shoes. I knew Lisa would know whose shoes they were. They belonged to the girl that Lisa's ex-boyfriend rebounded with after Lisa and him broke up, which highly upset her because it was her friend. Now it would upset her more because that same girl slept with both of her ex-boyfriends. I especially tried to collect items if it was something that I knew Lisa could distinguish, like a sweater from the women's track team with her teammate's name on it. After some time I had collected a boatload of shit. After a couple months or so, one of the Lisa's teammates' boyfriends found out about me and his girlfriend, and it started a big beautiful dramatic explosion of series of events with her and her teammates. This led to all of them finding out about one another's promiscuity. The drama was massive. Even their coaches had to get involved, it got so bad. This made me feel so powerful in such an evil yet satisfying way. I fell in love with the destruction I was causing. The most awesome part about all of it was that same week, the athletics PR team had put massive posters of me all over campus promoting the next game. They were everywhere. Some of the posters took up the entire side of buildings. So Lisa and her friends had to see me all over campus every day while this drama was erupting all around them. I felt like a triumphant dictator. It was glorious and pathetic at the same time. Their coach even proceeded to have a serious meeting with the compliance department and my team's coaches. My coaches literally laughed at her, saying this seems like an internal issue, but Top hasn't done anything illegal or broken any school policy, so there is nothing we can do. This infuriated the women's track coach. Their team had fallen apart. Their national ranking began to plummet. Then Lisa's coach even got in trouble for being caught tearing down some of the smaller posters of me on campus in raging temper tantrum. I loved all of it. I continued to add fuel to the fire, posting photos of me with girls, smiling, being happy every chance I could on Facebook and Instagram. But under it all, I was bitter. I was so deep into my new mindset I had already forgotten the kind-hearted naive kid I used to be. I hated my old self because I let some girl emasculate me. I was so full of self-pity looking back, it's depressing. No one really knew though, because I played the cool guy attitude in front of people. There was even a girl on campus on one of the sports teams who claimed that she was pregnant with my kid after I pretended to like her the same way I did with all of the other girls on Lisa's team, and soon as we passionately hugged I moved on. It's a long story, but it turned out she wasn't pregnant, but the news or press that came from that further dug the knife deeper into Lisa's side. I left a trail of women I deceived and relationships I destroyed. I feel bad now, but at the time I didn't care because they were equally at fault in my eyes, since they were cheating on their boyfriends or sleeping with their friend's ex. Quickly, girls became weary of me. Plus I was running out of potential targets. Fuck, I was an awful human being then the way I was thinking, and I was going after girls that weren't even friends or on the track team with Lisa but were just around her in daily life. For example, her classmates and as well as her own family. I even flirted with her sister who was married with a kid, and I almost succeeded. She was down, but her and Lisa's dad found out about it and stepped in and put a stop it all before we could do anything. Her sister was ostracized as the news spread within the family. I wanted Lisa to know I was everywhere and constantly remind her how she fucked up. In my eyes this was all her fault, and she unleashed this fury of chaos upon herself. She should never have fucked with me like that. Lisa had to take an extended medical leave because of her depression and mental health issues she was experiencing from the whole situation. She was becoming suicidal. She even had to go on medication and lost tons of weight. She began to look extremely unhealthy. The whole mess was torturing her, and the more she hurt the better I felt. At this point I had already inflicted more damage than she did to me, but I had become addicted to the feeling of power. I spent zero time processing my own emotions or moving on from what happened. All I wanted was more revenge, and I couldn't stop. After weeks of ignoring Lisa's texts and calls, she finally gets a hold of me by showing up to my apartment unannounced late at night. She was there to pick up some stuff she left from when she lived there to take home. She was actually a local and her parents lived close by. She was still on her medical leave and no longer staying on campus but rather with her parents. I told her I would bring her stuff to her parents' house that weekend, but I couldn't let her in because I had company. Which I did, but it wasn't one of her teammates or friends, unfortunately. I then to take all the items I had collected from all the girls over the weeks. There was probably like 8 or 9 things from different girls including her teammates, and threw their belongings in along with Lisa's stuff into big black trash bags. I took the bags to her house and then called Lisa's dad. I told him I left her stuff on his porch and to inform his demon daughter. Me and Lisa's dad actually really got along, and he even took my side after Lisa and I broke up. But after all these events transpired, he obviously had a negative opinion of me. 15 minutes after I get off the phone with her Lisa's dad, I get a call from Lisa. I answer because I want to hear her reaction to having all these other girls' shit mixed in with hers. She was sobbing uncontrollably. It sounded like that half-crying, half-mumbling thing people do when they are hysterical. She wasn't even angry, just desperately begging me to point to stop my tyranny. I just smiled and baked in the glory of hearing her hurt. I responded, "Why were there other guys in our relationship? You mixed them into our relationship like I mixed other girls' shit into your shit." It's perfect little ironic metaphor. I thought it sounded cool at the time and was real proud of myself. Facepalm. I later found out from one of Lisa's friends, who knew she was cheating on me during our relationship, that Lisa was convinced I was the one cheating on her because I was always out of town. This doesn't make sense since I was out of town because of basketball, a very legit excuse. Not just randomly on my own accord. You could literally see my schedule on the school's website. I kept in contact with her constantly when I was gone, but obviously when I had practice or team meetings I couldn't be on my phone. But she didn't have the logic in her brain to figure this out, I guess. I assume it's just an excuse she made to protect her insecurities about the whole fiasco or to keep face with people who knew she was cheating. Months go by. Lisa comes back to school from her medical leave and we bump into each other at the physical therapy center in our athlete facility building. I see this as yet another opportunity. It had been a while since I did something that hurt her and I was still hungry for more vengeance. I proceed to pretend like I want to rekindle things with her. She is cautious at first but eventually bites after about a week. We start to mend our relationship. We proceed for about a month but I wouldn't call this a relationship. I forbid her to have any male friends nor is she allowed to go out and party with her girlfriends. I also need full access to all her accounts and her location at all times. It was more like a hostage situation. It gave me a sense of control. Meanwhile, I'm not being faithful at all. This was my plan all along. Finally, she finds out about me sleeping with a girl in one of her classes and we have a nasty breakup. I told her that she literally knows what it felt like to be me when we last dated. Yet again, I felt triumphant. It was just another chance to hurt her and I did. After this we don't speak for years. I graduate university and move to Central America. She messages me while I'm there about a year after I moved and about 2 years after we last spoke. At this point my life has become that of a real degenerate. I was doing copious amounts of drugs on a daily basis and about 75% of my life was involved in some sort of illegal or nefarious activities. But I still blame her for me becoming the dark soul that I was and taking no responsibility for bitter immoral nature. I hadn't had another relationship since her and always had trouble because I couldn't trust women in any capacity anymore. Even after years had passed, I saw this instance of her messaging me as yet another opportunity to hurt her. We begin to talk as friends and even getting flirty with each other over Facebook Messenger. Mind you, there is literally many countries, states and an ocean between us at this point. I was planning a trip back to my old university to visit some friends. However, I told her was different. I explained to her I was moving back to the city for a new job I was just offered. We decide to meet up when I get back and see if there is anything worth saving between us. I had put on my best acting hat and tried to seem like I've put our past behind us. However, I'm just as vengeful now as I was years ago. She's finishing up her last year at university and I make the trip back to the USA. I meet Lisa at a coffee shop when I arrive. We spend the entire night together. From her point of view, it really looks like we had moved past our differences and what happened. We could actually work things out. However, I'm not moving back obviously like I told her. I am only stay 2 nights. She doesn't know this. After hooking up a few times and spending 2 days together, without mentioning anything to her about me leaving, I pack my things and get back on a plane back to Central America. I blocked her on all my social media and communication outlets. This time I could only fantasize about what happened to her when I disappeared after she thought I had moved back and supposedly was ready to give our relationship another try. This time, however, it wasn't as satisfying as my previous blots of revenge. My drug habit and lifestyle only got worse every year. 3 years later I was hospitalized and almost died because of my extended drug use. I was never sober a full 24 hours after the day that went through that fucking period calendar. Looking back, as much pain as I might have caused her with my vengeful life, my new identity that consumed my old one was so tainted with a dark spirit at heart. I think I honestly did more harm to myself with my actions and led me to down the road where I had no morals anymore. Though I spent the entirety of this story telling everyone of how I kept getting revenge at my ex for cheating on me, as satisfying as it was, I wish I would have spent an equal amount of energy healing myself from the incident. If anyone reading this is experiencing the pain that comes with cheating, a good revenge story can bring you some satisfaction, but I hope you don't make the same mistake I did. Rather spend more time healing yourself from the hurt and moving past it. The revenge won't heal you. It will be a separate journey but could distract you from putting yourself back together. Luckily I got sober and am sober now 4+ years. I even had another girlfriend of 2 years cheat on me before I got sober, but this time I didn't take revenge. I spent my time healing. I changed and only focused on myself, and that was way more satisfying than the revenge I got on Lisa for cheating on me. Now I'm married almost 2 years to a woman who is sober, and man do I have a good life. I have a dream job and a dream marriage. Thank you everyone who read this. Sorry if it wasn't well written, I never write like this, but I have never told the full story in detail before and I got a lot out of writing it. Mostly what I hope to get from this is to share my experiences doing horrible things but feeling an immense satisfying feel from it, where it's almost addictive. And morphing from generally a good person to a relatively dark evil one. Obviously people have dark moments, but I feel like my personality and psyche has never been the same since that experience. I'm looking forward to any responses to the people willing to read this shit. Too long did not read. Updated a woman a few years younger than him in college, Lisa. Lisa kept a period tracker and kept when she had unprotected sex, while documenting their sex for GF who had fallen asleep. Op saw she had been having unprotected sex with at least 4 dudes since they had been dating. Op's roommate kicked her out. Op decided to get revenge. This started with fucking all 3 of her relay partners, track team, which eventually led to the team crashing. They also had BFS, so Op used this as fuel to say that women are the problem, not him. At this time Op starts going down the rabbit hole with drugs and alcohol. This continued on for a long time, and Op started keeping an item from women that would be identifiable to Lisa for his plan. He would purposely target, own words, girls close to Lisa so drama would be worse, and he would have more ammunition to hurt her. Lisa took a mental health break from depression, and came to Op's house asking for her stuff back. He brought it to her parents and put all the items he had been collecting. She called him crying and he reveled in it. Months later, they run into each other at PT and he convinces her to give it another shot, knowing it's a game. Knowingly holds her hostage, no guy friends, no parties, no going out, all while cheating. They eventually break up. Years later, Op is contacted by Lisa and says he's moving back to their country for a job. IRL, he's going for a 2-day visit, and basically catfishes her into trying to date him again. They meet up and hang out the whole time. He then packs up and leaves without a word to hurt her again. After this, Op goes down a bad road with drugs and alcohol, ends up in the hospital, and has another GF cheat on him. He did not take revenge on her. Op is now married, and has a good job and has, presumably, been clean. He is also aware of how toxic it all is. I think that's everything. I recruited an unwitting army to annoy an asshole. Back in the early 90s, my friend, I'll call him Lou, because that's his name, was selling his RX-7 via an ad in the old print auto trader. It came out every Thursday, so that first weekend was critical for sales. The very first guy that came to see it on Saturday said he wanted to buy after driving it. Of course, he had to finance, so they couldn't finish the sale during the weekend. Lou was worried about losing all the bites from the new ad, so he asked for a deposit of $500. The guy wrote a check. Lou told the rest of the callers that weekend that it was sold and, unfortunately, didn't ask for their numbers in case it fell through. This story predates caller ID availability in my area by a couple years, so those leads were gone. As you surely expect by now, the guy flakes on Monday and Lou deposits the check. Payment stopped. Big surprise. Sitting around my apartment, we schemed revenge, but all we had to go on was the check. Lucky for karma, there was a phone number printed on it. Our first idea was to write a little program to dial his number repeatedly from my modem, but that would be easily stopped and probably get us in direct trouble. Then Lou got a page from his work. This was back in the one-way pager days. You call the pager's dedicated phone number, it sounds a tone, then you punch digits for the number you want to be sent to the pager. The person with pager receives the number you entered and, presumably, calls it. Everyone with a pager made sure that people who needed to get a hold of them had the number for their pager. You'd see pager numbers in print and TV ads all the time for various services. Boom, angelic choir sings, heavenly light goes off. Lou's pager number and my pager number had the same prefix, middle 3 digits. What if we randomly dial numbers with that prefix and page them all to this guy's number? So we order a pizza, open some beers, and start looking through the yellow pages at locksmiths and tow truck services to find more pager prefixes. We wind up with a dozen or so. After that, it's half an hour of coding in Yoldi Ball and C++. I put together a program that would cycle through a list of known prefixes and add a random final 4 digits to get a random pager. It calls the pager's number, pauses, then dials this asshole's number and throws a 911 suffix on there for good measure, which is something people with pagers understood to indicate an emergency of some kind. The whole thing was just generating a string like Act 602 xxx, asshole number 911 hash, where 30 is the pager prefix and yi is random. Commas make pauses, since you need to connect to the paging service before you can enter the message. Make string, send to modem, wait for no carrier, hang up, repeat. We start eating the pizza and let it fly. I was very picky about my devices, so my modem was a US robotics courier. You could set an S register to control how long it would sound each tone when dialing. Uber nerds like myself would keep tinkering with that to get it as fast as possible while still being recognized by the phone service. It was very fast. I swag it could run through 4 pages per minute, so this guy would get 240 calls an hour. We just watched it run and laughed our asses off. We realized pretty early on that we didn't really know if it was working, so we wandered down to the 7-Eleven and called him from a payphone, just in case he could somehow trace it or the popo were on the case and watching. A man answered and I said, "Hello, I got a page at this number?" I heard an audible sigh and then he just hung up. Gold. We ended up running it for a few hours, then let it go quiet for a few days. Then we scheduled it to start dialing in the middle of the night every few days, plus we'd fire it up by hand randomly whenever we had a party. We checked again from the 7-Eleven after a week and it went to an answering machine, which did the rapid tone at the end of the greeting to indicate the tape was full. We reasoned that the line was still ringing, anyway, so we kept at it for another month or so. Eventually, we got the disconnected warning when we made one of our regular checkups. I'm sure he just changed the number. I like to think about that guy answering the phone after a few days of silence when we started it up. I can vividly imagine his response at the "Did someone page me to this number?" as he slams the phone down and then it rings again a few seconds later. Or, of course, coming home from work and having an answering machine full of random people asking about being paged. And, yeah, we annoyed several thousand people into calling this guy by the end. But each of those people was only put out for a single call. A cost, yes, but a necessary one for justice. Why aren't you listening to me? Are you deaf? Yes, I am. This came up recently in conversation and made me laugh a lot, so I thought I would share so hopefully someone else can get a kick out of it. I'm on mobile, so my bad for any crappy formatting. Also, I would like to add that despite having a rocky relationship with my mum at the time, I'm glad to say it's a lot better, so I can laugh about it. Growing up, I was introverted from the get-go because I was bullied and preferred reading, but my mum hated the fact I wasn't girly. I didn't want fairy tale books, I wanted encyclopedias on bones and autonomy. I didn't want to wear pretty dresses, etc. I wanted to wear jeans and baggy shirts. I didn't even get into makeup until I turned maybe 19, 20. whereas my mum was that parent that always looked done up to the nines. So having a daughter who rejected all that, well, we clashed a lot. My mum has always been very big on respect. However, she was also the person in our family who others got sent to be straightened out when they were being a lot to handle, but because of this, she would flip at the slightest thing she perceived as being rude, disrespectful, etc. So because of this, in my family, everyone loved babysitting me because I was good kid, but my mum would always be like, why is she so good with you but is always so rude to me? I wasn't being rude. And even then it would upset me and make me pull away from her, which again, she would see as disrespect. Her favorite thing to complain about was that I ignored her, like, all the damn time. I would get grounded so much because she had apparently shouted on me and I didn't hear her, so she would assume that because I didn't answer, I was ignoring her. I cannot tell you how much this used to piss me off because my brother, the actual problem, and golden child, would get left off the hook all the damn time. It got to the point when I was about 12 I came home from the library telling my mum that I wanted to be a boy so she would treat me the same. 12-year-old me used her library card to get gender reassignment information and gave it to her. She flipped her goddamn lid, man. Still funniest thing I've ever witnessed. So, after basically being grounded for a good maybe 4 months on and off with a few days in between, my mum goes mental on me because I didn't bring down my laundry for her coming back to put on. Screaming at me, yelling, telling me I'm the worst kid, etc., and I'm just staring at her because I don't even know what's going on. When I asked her if I responded when she shouted, she just stopped shouting and looked at me confused. Why would I ask such a ridiculous question? Well, we had agreed that unless I respond to her, I haven't heard it. Did I respond? No, because I didn't hear her. When I pointed all this out, she locked me in my room screaming that she was getting me tested for being deaf. I had this all the time. She would say I was at it, and when I tried to explain I wasn't, she would shout that she was getting me tested so she could put a stop to my problem behavior. Well, that was the last straw for her because 3 days later, I was getting tested for my hearing because she had enough. I cannot tell you the smugness in my mum's face when we went. She was going on and on saying that I was ignoring her, pretending I couldn't hear her and was just being a problem kid, and she was sick of it. So she was getting me tested so once and for all, she could basically have something that proved she was right. She couldn't be wrong, you see, and since this had been going on for a good 2/3 years at this point, she was done. Well, they tested me. Not only am I partially deaf in both ears, I can't tell what volume I'm talking at. Yep. Not only was I partially deaf, I was basically partially fucked with it. Because this was another complaint, that I was always shouting when I got excited or just talking, and I would get real confused because I was like, I'm just talking normally, whereas sometimes I would be near whispering and again, didn't realize. I cannot tell you how much satisfaction I still get to this day when I saw her jaw hit the floor when they came out with the results. My mum was so shocked, in fact, she made them do it again because apparently, 12-year-old me faked it. I faked the full thing. So they done it again, same result. She couldn't believe it, and for the first time I remember seeing it dawn on her, how she had been treating me and I had been telling the truth. That quickly went away though when her face went scarlet as I asked, does this mean you're going to stop grounding me and locking me in the room when I don't hear you? I was quickly hurried out the room at that point though, but the people looked shocked, which was pretty funny. On the way home, she barely looked at me and bought me MCDs. I've never let her live it down. It makes me laugh so much to think back on. If I'm going to have points taken off, they better be because of the work I did and not because my teammate finds my work unsatisfactory. Too long did not read at the bottom. Edit, I apologize for posting in the wrong sub, for it sound like this is more of a justice served type of story. I'm not very confrontational, so for me this was something I'd consider revenge. I didn't mean to leave an unsatisfactory feeling behind for anybody. Frown in my defense. I actually felt adrenaline rush when it all happened, but I realized my mistake. I'm still pretty pleased regardless lol. When I was a freshman in UNI, I had to take chem as one of the prereqs for my major. For my lab I was paired with other 3 students, which all happened to be part of the honors college, and they knew I wasn't. They would often talk about their honor class and how hard it was to be an honor student, and one of them, whom I will refer to as K for know-it-all, would kind of belittle me for not being part of such elite group at a public university. Every week we had a lab that required a full written report, and the 4 of us divided the work into 4 sections. I always volunteered for the intro and conclusion since chemistry has never been my forte, but I was a fairly decent technical writer. Not outstanding, but not bad lol. So I stuck to what I knew how to do. Kay kind of took the leadership role from our team, and she would compile all of our parts and turn in the lab report. So we get the first report back, and we got points deducted from both my intro and conclusion. My spirits did fall low because I was sure I did a good job, plus I knew my teammates were smart, so I didn't want to be that student. Regardless, everything was fine until a pattern began to develop. Week after week points were being deducted from the intro and conclusion only. Then it all went down. After a few weeks, Kay gets one of our lab reports back, and she stands in front of me with that sassy mad look, arms crossed, foot tap and all, and she says something along the lines of, "You need to do better," and I'm like, I'm trying my best, which I was. I was doing so much research and really trying to be accurate, but then she goes like, word by word, "Well, obviously is not good enough." When she said this I was so hurt, and I just stayed quiet because that's who I am. But what hurt the most was that she did it in front of our other teammates. I felt so humiliated. One of the other girls in our team was also taken aback by her comment, and she tried defending me, which I truly appreciated, but Kay just rolled her eyes and walked away. Things didn't improve after that. Points continued being deducted, and it was all because of my sections. Whatever. It's the end of the semester, and I come across all the lab reports that I ended up keeping after the TA gave them back. For some reason I decide to go over them, and the intro and conclusion were nothing like the ones I wrote. Everything had been edited, format, word choice, and the entire freaking content was totally different. I was furious. I started writing a rant email to Kay, but in the middle of my dissertation I thought of something better. I emailed our TA. I sent her everything. I explained everything that went down during the semester, sent her the original files and the emails I sent Kay that included the original attachments. I asked her to reconsider my grades and told her that I would accept any new grades she believed my work deserved, even if it meant having more points deducted. I was confident in my work though. I also asked that if she considered better marks for my work, to also grant the same grade to my other 2 teammates except for Kay. The TA got back to me after a couple of days, letting me know that my grades and those of my other 2 teammates had been updated, just in time for the university's final grades deadline, and bam! A+ as my final grade. Not sure what Kay got, since I'm sure she did well in the final, but based the grade of all of our reports it was a B. I wanted to send Kay my new grades, but unfortunately I'm not very brave. Plus I'm sure her and the other 2 students would talk about it and find out, since lab ended about 2 weeks before finals and they still had that stupid honors class together. But let me tell you that the feeling of satisfaction I got was enough, even if she never found out. Too long did not read. Lab teammate modified my work to fit her honor standards, costing us points in our grade, then blamed me for it. I emailed the TA with my original work, resulting in a perfect score for my other 2 teammates and myself, while know-it-all got a B+. My aunt kicks my friend while she's having a seizure. On phone and writing this now after I cool down. Hi again. If you read my first story you know a little about my aunt, who is crazy and rude, but this is the first time I've ever felt really hatred for her. Background: so last weekend I had my friend who shall now be known as Cool Friend, CF for short. Auntie's entitled Aunt, EA, because we haven't seen each other in 2 years. Now she had an accident where she had split her head open and had to get staples in it. Her mom was and still is abusive, and she started having seizures soon after the staples. She didn't want to come over, but I begged her to because I missed her like hell and wanted to spend the weekend with her, so she came over with almost everything she needed. Almost. Now she had her meds for her seizures but also had a nose spray thing for if she had a cluster, back-to-back seizures with no response, and only had one. She was supposed to bring 2 but didn't. Also, my aunt was in my area because one of her friends had just had a baby and was having a party for her new baby girl. Note: the friend was a darling and her baby was an angel. My aunt is a total witch. End of background. Now this takes place last weekend on Saturday. She got here on Friday and would go home Sunday. We were hanging out and chatting like girls do and just enjoying our time together. Well, I get a call from an unknown number and I'm about to let it ring out cause my gut said not to trust it when my friend picks it up and answers. It's something she does for me when I'm too far from my phone or busy, and puts it on speaker. I hear my aunt's voice and decide to listen. Yay. Hi-op. How ya been? Who answered the phone? Me. Hi EA. That's just my friend CF. EA. Oh okay, well my friend is having a party for her baby and I wanted you to come and celebrate with us. Me. Knowing my friend has asthma, oh well I would, but CF is here and I don't think she'd want to be in a big room full of people. EA. A bit snippy. Well, I didn't invite her, did I? I invited you. Me : I know, but I can't just leave my friend here without me. That's rude. EA. Now whining. But oh up, she draws out my name. I need you there. See, cousin, will be there and she wants to see you. Ooh. Me, rolling my eyes. CF. Covers the phone speaker. I can go, I have my mask. So I confirm with my friend that she's okay going and tell my aunt I'll go if CF can come with me. EA. UGH fine. Make sure to bring a present. She then hangs up and I now have to text her asking when the hell the party is and where is it. She gives me the info and tells me it's a girl, so I go upstairs, get an old gift back I haven't put, a little hand-knit diaper bag someone from my baby shower gave me. I never use it cause it's too big for me and I kept it in good condition. It would make me super happy if someone having kids used it. So the party time rolls around and me and CF are driven to the party by my mum and go in with our masks on. There's 2 rooms, one for the adults to talk and hang without their masks and the room where the presents are and the baby. Outside that room a sign that said masks mandatory beyond this point was standing wearing bright red colors. I go over and place my present, then we head over to a table and chill while a few other kids our age come over. I see my cousin and we go and chat with each other while my friend assures me she'll be fine at the table. Now by this point she had already had 2 seizures at home and a cluster the night before, so she had no more spray. So I'm talking with her and drinking some juice when I hear people screaming. We run over and I see my friend seizing on the ground and people trying to get her onto her back. I cut in and lay her head on my shoulder and turn her on her side while telling everyone to stand back. Then I hear my aunt screeching at me about how my friend is ruining the party by spying on the floor. I tell her she's seizing and she'll be okay in a moment. This is when my aunt decides she's doing it for attention and kicks my friend in her stomach, with her fucking winter boots on. I start screaming at her to stop and am on the verge of tears while shielding my friend. My aunt keeps kicking and then tries to grab her by the hair while yelling at her to stop being a drama queen. I punch my aunt and tell her to get the fuck away. She's not conscious and can't respond. My aunt falls back and some of the guests grab her while someone calls the police. By this time I see my friend has stopped but isn't responding. I start to panic and pray this isn't a cluster because she hates the hospital and would be scared if she woke up there. Well, we try to wait it out, but eventually we call an ambulance. When everyone gets there, my aunt is arrested for assault for a disabled person and the paramedics have a thing of her nose spray. They keep everyone separated, but after an hour she was let go now that she was okay, and my cousin couldn't stop apologizing for her mother, to me and the friend. I had to wait days to post this cause if I didn't I probably would have gotten in trouble with Reddit for either language or serious shaming. I haven't talked to my aunt since and I don't plan on ever talking to her again. What she did was stupid and dangerous to my friend's health and got her arrested. Sorry for the ranting, but I hope you enjoyed or at least didn't punch the wall. Also, I probably didn't proof this, but I need formula for my baby. Are you sure? I've worked in a supermarket for 10 years. You get your share of Karens and the only thing you can do is smile politely. But what I even hated more after an 8-hour shift and having to close up the supermarket were the customers who came in 5-10 minutes before closing and just do their shopping like no one wants to go home. There was a time that I was scheduled every Friday closing shift and pretty much every Saturday closing shift. The store closed at 8. We weren't open on Sundays then. Also on Saturday we had to take out all the cash drawers and manually count all the money. We could start doing this when all the customers had left and the front and back doors were locked. So customers coming in 5 to 10 minutes before closing time and taking their sweet time to shop were hated. Hated with a passion. My shop had a procedure. We would barricade our entrance and turn our front door on, only opening when people wanted to leave the store at about 5 minutes before closing. We would remind customers at 1:45, 10 to and 5 to closing time that the store was going to close and please go and pay for their groceries. Normally we had very few incidents. This one, however, is burned in my memory. C equals colleague, FM equals formula man. It was a Saturday. As head of the cashiers for that night, I had the honor to make or break the day of our beloved customers. I had to deal with my fair share of Karens, male and female, and I just wanted to go home. So I follow the procedure, ask one of my fellow money handlers to set the front door and stay there to handle any customer. At 2 minutes before closing time, a man comes running to the door. My colleague asks what he needs and reminds him that the store is going to close and he won't have much time. He says he just needs formula. Since I was busy with a customer, she let him in. Guy gets a basket and goes into the shop. Since he said he needed formula, we thought he would be in and out like Road Runner. Nope. No, because FM didn't need formula. At 8.05 FM is seen at the cheese section of our store. 8.15 at our wine section. What the heck does he need that for? What kind of baby does he have? Several of my colleagues have gone to this man to get him to the counter. He scoffs, huffs and says that he's a paying customer. My fellow money handler was the last one to go to him, and that's when he went too far. He yelled at her, cussing at her and making a high school student cry. Now I'm pissed. So I do what I always do in these situations. I take off my store shirt, put out a neat jacket I keep in case of emergencies and put it on. You see, when you have the store outfit on, you are often seen as a lesser being. But behold, I change my outfit and suddenly I look like management and my word is all powerful. The real manager sees this happening, pops out a huge grin and goes to the back and watch from the security cameras. So I don the magical outfit and go to FM. I tell him in no uncertain terms that the store has been closed for 15 minutes and he has been asked multiple times to go and pay for his things. He starts to huff and puff himself up like the big bad wolf. I'm 5 feet 2 inches woman and people think they can intimidate me. I told him that he was only allowed entrance since he said he needed formula. So I gave him a choice. He could go now and pay for the things in his basket, or I would take the basket from him, grab the formula he claimed to need so much, and he could pay for that. He could choose not to do either, and in that case security would love to make his acquaintance. Either way, he would leave now. He tried, oh boy, he tried to threaten and intimidate me. He failed. He left. With his cheese and wine. And many threats to call corporate. The next week he came again. This time he encounters me at the door. What did he need? Formula. So I brought him to our service desk, went inside and brought out a single pack of every kind of formula we had. Asked him which one he needed. He didn't say a word and left. Don't mess with our closing times. Revenge of the cheerleaders, then us. Then the cheerleaders again. This is a story of how mutual escalation changed the 4th of July parade in my town forever. My family lived in the first house on the parade route, so we have always gone all out for the holiday. Since we are the first house on the route, lots of people wanted to be in our yard. We always had a big crowd of friends turn up for the day. But my parents didn't believe in staking out our yard and shooing strangers away, so the huge crowd on our lawn was always a mix of friends and strangers. Traditionally, during the parade some of the floats had water pistols. The little baseball teams, the Boy Scouts, etc., basically any float that had a bunch of kids on it had water pistols. What water could make it to the side of the road would barely get you wet, it would be a few drops here and there. One year, the high school varsity cheerleaders, who always rode on top of a big fire truck, thought it would be funny to bring super soakers and completely soak people in the crowd. I can't remember who they got in our yard, but it made my mum pretty mad. The next year, my older brother and sister were given their marching orders. They sat on opposite sides of our front lawn, looking innocuous. The cheerleaders turned onto the route, giant super soakers in hand. My sister and brother were under strict orders not to fire unless fired upon. So when the first cheerleader targeted someone in the crowd and started spraying, both my siblings surged to their feet. In their hands, spray nozzles attached to garden hoses. They let loose and sprayed every cheerleader on the fire truck until they were soaking wet and dripping. Again, we were the first house, so the cheerleaders had to ride the entire route with wet hair and makeup running down their faces. The next year, we had the garden hoses ready, but hoped the cheerleaders had learned their lesson. What we had forgotten was that they were on top of a fire truck. Those wily pep experts had swayed the firemen to their cause. They let loose with super soakers, we retaliated with garden hoses, and all of a sudden our entire yard was a catastrophic deluge of water. That's right, they turned the fire hoses on us. Probably 50 people were soaked through to the bone. Anyway, since there were always strangers on our lawn, many of whom didn't know about the cheerleader war, there was a lot of innocent collateral damage. Someone complained to the city council about an expensive ruined camera. The next year, all water guns of every kind were banned from the parade, and they've been banned ever since. Well fought, cheerleaders, kid. You can't have my phone. Me memes, Tisai. M enormous manatee. Ek entitled kid. Sa store associate. This happened before a blizzard hit. I was out doing some small Christmas shopping since I was ahead of my classmates and had nothing to do. Since it was in the morning, the shop I was planning on going to was closed, so I waited outside. This was in a mall. Yes, they follow COVID regulations. I decided to take out my phone and play some Genshin Impact. A few minutes later, I hear heavy breathing and look up from my game. I see this kid with stars in his eyes looking right at me. EK, are those dinosaur stickers? I was confused at first until I realized he was talking about the Sobble stickers on my phone case. Me. They're Pokemon stickers. EK, why are they on your phone? Me, because I like this Pokemon. I love Sobble. EK, cool. I want some. Me, want me to tell you where to get them? Ek runs off, presumably to get a parent. I continue to play Genshin Impact until the mom arrives. I stop playing for a moment. EM, hello, miss. Me, hi? Are you the kid's mum? EM, yes I am. Me, oh cool. Your son liked my stickers. I show the mom my phone case with stickers. EM, interesting. Now, can you give me your phone? Me, wait. What? EM, your phone, darling. Can you give it to me? She kneels down to my level. I did not feel comfortable, especially with the pandemic and the fact that I have caught COVID-19 before. EM, you see, my son has been a very good boy and I want to give him an expensive Christmas present. Besides, you're too old for one. Can you give it to me for the sake of Christmas spirit? I stand up and move. Me, okay, many points here. 1. You were way too close to me. I don't like it when strangers get in my face. 2. No. I will not give you my phone since this also contains my personal information and emails from colleges I hope to attend. 3. Have you really decided to stoop this low that you had to use Christmas spirit as an excuse for theft? 4. I don't know what your son has been up to. He may have done some bad things and you don't know about it. EM, how rude. Teenagers these days are so selfish and dumb. Give me the phone with the dinosaurs now. She tries to yank my phone, but I have a strong grip and retain my phone. EK, mommy. I want the phone with the dinosaurs now. EM, don't worry, my angel. I'll get it for you. The store opens and one of the employees steps in. SA, hey. Stop the fight. The M yanks my phone from my hand. EM, oh thank goodness you have arrived. This little hooligan tried to take my son's phone. Please call security to kick her out. Me, that was a horrible acting job. You were the one that took my phone from me. Plus, you kept on calling my Sobble stickers dinosaur stickers. The store associate sees the case and gives my phone back to me. SA, Mom, you need to leave now. This is her phone. EM, no I won't, I'm friends with the security and I can kick you two out. Who's gonna laugh now? Me, you act like you slept with one of them. SA calls for security. Cthulhu Mum and her spawn are escorted out of the mall. As it turns out, SA also likes Pokemon. If she didn't, I would have been screwed. Accuse me of stealing? You will lose everything. First post. Be kind. This happened way back in the dark ages, 1986. I was 21 at the time and working for a gas station that was associated with a certain grocery store chain in Washington state. It was owned by a company not affiliated with said chain, but had locations at nearly every one. As this was long before the days of debit cards, this was a cash-only gas station. We didn't even take credit cards. Customers would pull up, pump their gas and then come to my window to pay. We also sold cigarettes. No drinks, no snacks. Customers couldn't even get into my booth. I had been working there about a year when the company announced it was closing the location. My manager and I were offered positions at another location upstate and we both accepted. We moved our respective families and started our new jobs. As new hires, this station was incredible busy. We did more business in 8 hours than my old location would do in a week. This location also had a different setup. Here you would pull into the station from a single entrance, pump your gas, and then drive forward to a single exit where the pay here booth was located. There were always 2 cashiers on duty. Each cashier had a cash drawer. One thing I should note, there were also no computers. So closing the drawer down between shifts was timing consuming and tedious. We had to manually count the cigarettes remaining, and count the cash drawers. We would fill out an end-of-shift report listing the starting balances and the ending balances. We also had to list the gallons sold from each pump. At the end of the shift, the total of gallons sold and the total cigarettes sold should equal the cash balance. It is important to note here that not once in the year I had worked for the previous location had I been off by more than 10 cents. The following morning after my first shift, I was informed by the manager that I was short $50. Impossible, I said, I balanced out yesterday. He said that I must have stolen that money after I had completed the paperwork. I just looked at him and said, no, I didn't. He gave me a verbal warning and said if it happened again I would be fired and the stolen money would be deducted from my paycheck this week. In the 5 days that followed, I realized quickly the manager was up to something. My old manager, who was just another worker now, was also accused of stealing. As was one other new employee. I can't vouch for the other employee, but I'm pretty sure she did nothing wrong. The employees that had been there a while were never accused of anything. I did some checking and found out this manager was relatively new, had only been there about 6 months, and the other cashiers had been here before him. Only new cashiers were being accused of stealing. And that location had been having stealing problems for about 6 months, and the turnover was high with the new employees. I came to work at 6 a.m. on a Monday only to be told I was being fired. For cause. The manager accused me of taking $500 out of my drawer the previous Friday. He said he only discovered it this morning, even though he had worked sat and sun. I said okay and left. I was pretty angry, and instead of going home, I parked in the grocery store parking lot and proceeded to settle in to watch the gas station. I knew that at 9 a.m. sharp, he would take the cash in the safe and make the weekend deposit. At 9 a.m. he left the gas station and headed to the bank. But instead of walking into the bank, he walked into the Indian casino next door. It's not really a casino like we think of today, but more of a betting parlor for the races. It did have slot machines, but no card tables. I think, well, this is interesting. He comes out of the casino at exactly 10 a.m., walks next door to the bank, does his business, and then heads back to the gas station. I head home with a plan. Every morning I follow him from the gas station to the casino. I take a picture of him leaving, and one of him arriving at the bank and walking into the casino. I take pictures of him coming out and then heading to the bank. I do this for 5 days straight. He even went on Saturday. On day 3 my old manager was fired for stealing $150. I get the film developed, no digital camera in the dark ages. Note the times and dates on the back of each one. Then I call the main office of the gas company. It's after 5, but I'm hoping someone is there. And there is. I speak to a woman and explain my situation, and she says she knows exactly who I should speak to and transfers me. By some grace of God, she has transferred me to none other than the president CEO of the company. I tell him my story and tell him I did not steal from his company and could prove who actually did. He took down my information and said he would be in touch. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. The next morning I went to the station to perform my usual observation of the manager. At 9 a.m. he leaves for the bank. At 10 a.m. he comes out. At that moment 2 stern-looking gentlemen approach him. One pulls out his wallet and shows him something. The other one is talking. The manager goes pale and takes a step back. Next thing I know, he is being escorted to a car I hadn't noticed, and they drive off. I lose them at a traffic signal, so I head back to the station. They all show back up about 5 minutes later, and a few minutes after that a police cruiser pulls in. The officer talks to the stern gentleman and proceeds to place the manager in handcuffs. The other man says nothing but is glaring daggers at the manager. The president called me later that afternoon and informed me that the manager had been arrested for embezzlement. Turns out that in 6 months he had managed to steal about $5,000. He would take the store cash into the casino and gamble with it. If he won, he would make the normal bank deposit. If he lost, he would make the deposit and note in his records that we had been short the previous day. The CEO had already been focusing on that location because of the stealing and high turnover rate, but my information helped them figure out what exactly had been going on. I was thanked and sent a substantial check as a reward. My old manager was offered the manager's job and I was offered my old job back. I declined as I had already found another job that I liked more and paid better. The gambling manager was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to attend counseling for his gambling addiction. His wife divorced him and took their 3 children to California. His house was foreclosed on and he ended up in a homeless shelter. Don't accuse me of stealing. I will get revenge. Update. Thank you for the likes and awards. Am I the arsehole for telling my parents to stop excluding my partner? I, 20M, have been dating my boyfriend, soon 20M, for almost a year. My parents both know I have a boyfriend, but don't seem to register that he is important to me. They don't like him because I'm out late with him sometimes, and I visit him on the weekends and they don't approve of that. Because of that, they don't seem to care to take my relationship seriously. I would understand if he was a fling that they would not want him around, but he clearly is not. Very clearly is not. He has been in my life since I was 15. We just didn't start dating until I turned 20. I keep trying to bring him around so they can spend time with him, get to know him better, etc. But they always make excuses for why they can't. Never good ones. I always try and bring him around when they would be free, and it is always super BS excuses, like I would but we're so busy, not even giving him a chance. Here is where I may be TA. My birthday is soon. They said they wanted to take me and my roommate out for brunch if it's safe, but didn't mention my boyfriend. I told them he has a name. He is my boyfriend, stop being so ridiculous. He's in my life, stop trying to kick him out of it. And all hell broke loose. I also told them that maybe I would want to visit more if they respected me enough to acknowledge that I have a boyfriend at my age, and that they should be ashamed for acting so immature. My mom started crying, my dad started yelling at me, and I just walked out. I decided I'm not putting up with this disrespect to me and my relationship. My grandmother and some of my aunts told me I'm being too hard on them, and honestly, I disagree. They need to realize I am old enough to choose my own partner, and while they don't need to like him, they need to respect him. This has been causing conflict for a while now, and my family is divided over it. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Am I the asshole for not paying for my neighbor's dog's child support? Yes, you read that right. This story is going to sound ridiculous, especially with that story from yesterday about the dogs cheating, but I assure you this isn't a shitpost. My neighbor's dog recently got pregnant and she claims my dog did it, which is likely because her dog often escaped into my yard and she lets her dog roam around it. It's annoying cause her dog shits in my yard. Well, now that she's pregnant she's pissed because hers was a purebred and she wanted to breed it. She says she's entitled to financial compensation and I'll have to pay child support for the pups as it'll cost her to take care of them. I laughed my ass off and said fat chance and no way in hell I'm paying for her dog's child support, and this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. She's threatening legal action and I'm pretty sure she can't do anything. She did nothing to stop her dog from entering my yard and often encouraged it. She just assumed my dog was neutered. She can't prove my dog impregnated hers, and lastly, I don't think child support works for dogs.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up with the best content from Reddit.